Hey, it's Scott here, Senior Pastor at OBC. Last Sunday, I could never have guessed what was going to happen. The events of this last week have turned our worlds upside down once more. There has been the call once again for us all to do our part. For many of us, that has meant staying at home. Some of us have yet again been doing our best to work from home. Others have been unable to do so. While some of us have had to go to work with increased demands, risks, and safety precautions. And we do all of that knowing that we play our part for the benefit of everyone else in society. Because our immune systems aren't familiar with the coronavirus that causes COVID-19, we are all at risk of infection, and we are all at increased risk of complications from infection. It seems that the Delta strain is better equipped at attaching itself to our cells, and that means it transmits more easily and multiplies in our bodies more quickly. The experts who have spent their lives preparing for this type of event recommend a certain set of behaviours when the virus is present in our community. Minimise interaction. I know this sounds dumb, but you catch the virus from other people who have the virus. Stay at home when you can. Keep away from others as much as you can. If you have to go out, keep your distance. Good hygiene. If you have to go out, wear a mask. This helps protect you a little, but it also helps protect everyone else from you if you have the virus. Wherever you go, wash your hands and try to avoid touching your face. Our hands do all our dirty work. They push shopping trolleys and hold stair rails. They open doors and shake other people's hands. And then we get them to do all our grooming, touching our eyes, our noses, and our mouths. Sometimes just out of habit. Cough into your elbow, sneeze into a tissue, blow your nose and throw the tissue away. Get vaccinated. Vaccinations help to prevent us from getting sick. We may still acquire the virus, like the nurse at the Auckland hospital, but we're far less likely to get significantly ill. In the US, where 70% of the population has been vaccinated, virtually all COVID hospitalizations are among those who have not had the vaccine. There will always be a little bit of to and fro with the numbers, but from what I have seen, you could be between 50 and 100 times more likely to die from COVID if you haven't been vaccinated. But also to prevent the virus from spreading, we all need to get vaccinated. To prevent outbreaks, the vaccination rate needs to be higher than 1 minus the inverse of the contagion rate of the virus, the R number. The more transmissible the virus, the more people we need to be vaccinated. All indications are that Delta is about twice as transmissible as Alpha, the first strain of the virus that we successfully eliminated. So if we needed 70% coverage under Alpha, we would need 85% of the population vaccinated to keep Delta under control. So imagine if I said that I believed all these things, that I agree with lockdowns and face masks and vaccines, but then I didn't do any of them. I would be a lying hypocrite. If my statement of beliefs aren't matched up by what I do, then I don't really believe them. If I say I believe all the science, but I don't live like I do, then the science isn't going to do me any good whatsoever, whether I believe it or not. This is the same issue that James is addressing in the part of his letter that we're looking at today, except that it wasn't about our beliefs in lockdowns, hygiene, or vaccines. It was about our faith in Jesus. Because our faith can't just be about belief. Our faith must work. If you've missed it, this is week 4 in our series on James, Instructions for a Life of Faith. And we began with the prize is worth the pain, before Jan preached on listen, accept, and do. Last week we heard James' strong words that we don't play favourites. And today we look together at the second half of James chapter 2, where James tells us that faith must work. Let's read together. What good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith, but don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say, goodbye and have a good day. Stay warm and eat well. But then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? So if you say you have faith in Jesus, but you don't do anything that Jesus tells his followers to do, what good is your faith doing? If your beliefs don't result in a change of lifestyle, you don't really believe. James says, suppose you see a brother or sister with no food or no clothing, and then you say, have a great day, hope it all works well for you, and yet you do nothing for them. Whatever it is that you claim to have isn't really worth much. Nice words won't feed the hungry. Nice words won't clothe the poor. Nice words won't heal the sick or prevent climate change. Words without actions are just pointless noise. Faith can't just be sentimentality. We can't just be well-meaning. We can't just see people in need and say, good luck with that. Faith must work. So being clear here, this is not salvation through works. We are already saved. But the fruit of our salvation should be seen through our actions. It is a demonstration of God at work in us. There are a couple of words here in these verses that I want to mention before we move on. Brothers and sisters. I've never been a super big fan of people using the word brother and sister when talking about others in church. Perhaps it's from my childhood with people like Brother Love from the WWE. But I think mostly it's because many of the people I have known who used those words never treated the people they called by those words like their actual brother or sister. So I guess if we lived by this, then it probably wouldn't bother me much. But be gentle with me. I probably have a little baggage over it to get over it. However, James is getting to something here that goes beyond what we sometimes think about. By using words of close relationship, brother and sister, James implies that we are ignoring those who are closest to us. If we really acted like brothers and sisters, how might things be different? And I know that we don't need to look far to see strained and dysfunctional sibling relationships, but in general, we treat our own family better than strangers. And in those words of close relationship, brother and sister, if they don't produce actions to match the implied relationship, they are just words. They are simply sentimental thinking, just like our sentimental faith. Faith must work. So you see, faith by itself isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless. Now, someone may argue, some people have faith, others have good deeds. But I say, how can you show me your faith if you don't have good deeds? I will show you my faith by my good deeds. You say you have faith, for you believe that there is one God. Good for you. Even the demons believe this, and they tremble in terror. How foolish. Can't you see that faith without good deeds is useless? Believing in God isn't enough. It's a good start. But without actions, James says we're no better off than the demons who tremble in fear in the knowledge that God alone is ruler of all. James asks what good our faith is if it doesn't do any good. And James has a very pragmatic test. The value of our faith is the difference it makes in the lives of others by working through our lives. The faith that saves you is the faith that changes you and is demonstrated by good works to those around you. Being theologically correct does no good if it doesn't result in works of righteousness. Using big long words, orthodoxy must lead to orthopraxy. Correct thinking must lead to correct doing. If we don't do it, we don't really believe it. Faith can't be just belief. The Greek word for faith can be translated as the nouns belief and faith and faithfulness. In modern English, there's quite a gap between belief and faithfulness. Faithfulness has a sense of diligent, repeated action. It's like the guy who said, oh yes, I'm a great believer in marriage. I believe in it so much, I've been married 3 times. Faithfulness is like those in our congregation celebrating 50 years of marriage this year. 10 years to go to get a letter from the king or queen. This idea of faithfulness is intrinsically tied into faith. Faith can't just be belief. Faith must work. Don't you remember that our ancestor Abraham was shown to be right with God by his actions when he offered his son Isaac at the altar? You see, his faith and his actions worked together. His action made his faith complete. And so it happened just as the scriptures say. Abraham believed God, and God counted him as righteous because of his faith. He was even called the friend of God. So you see, we are shown to be right by God by what we do, not by faith alone. Rahab the prostitute is another example. She was shown to be right with God by her actions when she hid those messengers and sent them safely away by a different road. James uses two contrasting examples of demonstration of faith at work. Abraham is the gold standard. He is the father of the nation of Israel, the one to whom the promise was made, the friend of God. James is probably a little bit looser with the actions Abraham took that God gave credit to. But the intent is no different. God talked to Abraham. Abraham followed God's commands to leave Haran and to move to a new land, to go and inspect the land, to circumcise his family, and to take his son to the place of sacrifice. And all of these are examples of Abraham's faith in God being outworked in his actions. James's other example is Rahab. She is a foreign woman with a bad reputation. How many bad choices had she been forced to make in her lifetime? I don't know. And yet she is remembered for her act of bravery and courage, demonstrating her faith that God had given Jericho and her people into the hands of the Israelites. Doesn't matter what bad has happened, what poor choices and poor actions we have done. This one act of faith, this faith at work in her life, is what she is remembered for. James uses the famous and the infamous in his own family tree to show that our faith is only ever real when it results in life change. And that when we step out in faith and take that step, God will reward it. Faith is more than just about right beliefs or nice thoughts. Faith must work. James finishes here with this verse. Just as the body is dead without breath, so also faith is dead without good works. This is one of those verses that's easy to read the wrong way round. This is a pair of parallel metaphors joined by the same phrase, is dead without. First up, the word breath can be also translated as spirit. In both Hebrew and Greek, the same word is used for both breath and spirit. While in English, the two meanings are fairly distinct, in a lot of other cultures, the connections between spirit and breath are really real, they're really evident. So the breath or the spirit is what makes the body alive. Without the spirit, all we are is a corpse. But in the second part, we tend to look at this back to front. We're often tempted to think that our good works are nothing more than chaff when done outside of our relationship to God. And while it is true that good works without faith are also dead, this is not what James says. James says that in the same way that the Spirit turns our corpse into a person, good works breathes life into an otherwise stone-cold dead faith. Faith must work. Bigweld from the movie Robots had a motto, see a need, fill a need. It's very admirable, but it's not necessarily always right. I can see that there are far more needs than I can fill. I can't do everything, but I can do something. So, firstly, an important distinction here is that James says that when we see someone with no food or clothing, the need is real and immediate. It's not imaginary or made up. It's not based on insufficient information. It's not reached by jumping to conclusions that aren't warranted. These are real people who have real needs that we really know about. So let's pretend that I really love cooking. You have to pretend, because occasionally I enjoy cooking, but mostly I find it a bit stressful. But let's pretend that I love it. And then I see this person who has no food. And at first I look and I go, oh, you poor thing. And that's what James says we shouldn't do. But then I recognize that I need to do something about it. So then I decide that what the person really needs is cooking lessons. If only you knew how to cook, then you would always have interesting and exciting things to eat. I will have missed the point. If I don't stop to ask and find out more about why they have no food, I will never know. It's possible that food poverty is connected to a lack of cooking skills, sure, but it could be due to a lack of funds to purchase food, and that could be related to limited work opportunities. Or it could be due to lack of access to food supply, or a lack of supply of the foods that this person is used to eating. Without knowing the real reason, I can jump in to help with all sorts of help that isn't helpful. So it's important that we meet real felt needs in our community that are actually helpful, not just doing things to make us feel better. For a number of years, a group of people from OBC have been involved in reading club at Brookfield Primary School. Children who may not be able to do their homework reading at home are able to read to people who turn up between 8:30 and 9 a.m. each school day. And I know that this is a felt need because each day perhaps between 20 and 40 children turn up to do their reading. 2 years ago, following conversations about what other areas our church could help with, a similar initiative with Maths Club was started, which I've been a part of ever since. And as we consider our involvement in helping people in need, I think there are a few things we need to consider when we're responding to that need. And I'm going to use Maths Club as an example because it's something I do just down the road. The first is capability. Am I actually able to help? So I've always been good at maths, and having done stage 3 maths at university, I'm probably overqualified for helping out at Maths Club. But if I couldn't add or subtract or multiply, I'm really going to struggle to be of any help at Maths Club. Capacity. Do I have the space in my life to do this? Can I take this on? And for me, look, this is 30 to 45 minutes in the early part of the morning, 1 day a week. And so it fits into my schedule pretty well, so it's fine. Commitment. So is this going to be an ongoing commitment? Am I going to be doing this every week, or is it just a one-off? And so that's a good question to ask, because if it's going to be ongoing, I don't want to commit to it and then find out I can't. And so this is an ongoing commitment, and so it's one that we've committed to as a church. Cooperation and support. So are there others around me who are part of a team, we're doing this together, because that's such an important part of doing good works, is that this is something that we do together as a community, as a family. And so there are a number of other people from the church who also help out with Maths Club regularly. And a few who, some who just help out as backups when we can't do it. Accountability. Will I be held accountable, and will those who I'm helping be held accountable for their response to what I do? To be fair, accountability is pretty low on both sides of this commitment, but I do try and mark every sheet that the children do. These factors shouldn't be used as excuses for our inaction. Rather, they should be tools to help us determine the areas we invest in, the areas where our faith is going to get down and get dirty, and get involved in the lives of others. Our faith should be expressed through good works. That's what makes our faith alive. It can't be mere sentiment, and it can't be an empty creed. Faith must work. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for your word. We thank you for the promise that your word will achieve what you plan for it. We thank you for James's words. I pray that you would help us to spur one another on to good works that demonstrate the transforming power of your gospel. I pray that our faith wouldn't simply be well-meaning sentiment nor hollow words of affirmation, but that our faith would be filled and made alive by the good works that you have prepared in advance for us to do. Amen. God bless you. I know that today we probably weren't expecting to be in lockdown in our homes, but we are. I pray that you would know God's peace, love and mercy with you at this time. And once more, if you do have any needs, please get in touch. God bless.